I just went Menards deep. Ha! I bet you did. Finding tools you just can't get at other big box stores. From stunning storage containers to crazy clamps to beautiful bits to amazing woodworking accessories. My trip to Menards was a real eye-opener as I found 11 items you just can't get at those orange and blue big box stores. So I just made the trip, which is about 30 minutes away from my house, to check out this circus that's called Menards to see what it has to offer versus your typical hardware store. And I found 11 interesting items that we need to take a look at. And I spent about $250 on these 11 unique items, and I guarantee you there's some items in here you haven't seen before. So let's dive right in, going from cheapest to most expensive, and see if any of these tickle your fancy. And we're going to be moving fast today because we've got a lot to take a look at. And our first item of the day, coming in at $2.66, is something that I almost didn't get, as I didn't notice it until I was leaving the hardware section. Our first item of the day is called the Viewtainer, perfect for those parts you just don't want to throw away. Speaking of parts, last week I drove past an auto parts store. They had a sign out front that said dead batteries, $1. I thought they should be free of charge. So this tiny little Viewtainer comes in a variety of different colors and sizes. In my case, I went with one that's 2.5 inches wide by 5.5 inches tall. And these see-through containers are perfect for storing just about anything. In my case, I'm going to store hardware. By simply squeezing the sides of the Viewtainer, you can open up the lid to store anything you might want to put in this container. And once you release the sides, the lid automatically closes, giving you a secure storage solution, making this a great alternative to some of those breakable mason jars that you may already have in your shop. And at just over $2, I think this is a great alternative. But that's not the only $2 and some change item I decided to pick up. Let's check out our next item. This next item is only $2.99 and I think is a great value for the money. And this next item is a 1-inch metal spring clamp with a magnet. You know I love magnets and the ladies love me. So much so in high school a lot of people called me a chick magnet. But I also like to hunt, so some called me a tick magnet. And in fact, I thought this was such a good idea that I actually bought 2 of them. Now you probably already have a whole lot of metal spring clamps in your inventory, but this one's just a little bit different. And the difference between this spring clamp has everything to do with the small little magnet that's attached to the back of the clamp. Now fair warning, great album by the way, you need to make sure before you buy these clamps the magnet is attached. As I did notice a lot of these clamps were missing that magnet on the racks at Menards. So just make sure those magnets are attached to these clamps before you buy them. Now the reason that I like these clamps is because it opens up a lot of options on the metal surfaces in your shop. If you're like me and you have a couple metal doors in your shop, you can instantly turn that metal door into a storage option. And if you look around your shop, I think you'll be surprised at how many metal surfaces you have where you can use these clamps. Whether it's holding a secondary blade over your table saw or even another bandsaw blade, these things can really do the trick. And really, the sky is the limit for where you might use a clamp like this. And even if you decide not to purchase these clamps at $2.99 a pop, it may give you an idea on how to convert your regular spring clamps with magnets. And that's exactly why I decided to feature these magnetic spring clamps from Menards. For our next item, we're still staying under $5 at a whopping $4.44. And this next item is great for concealing simple joinery with just screws. This is the Tool Shop 4-piece plug cutter set. Let's check it out. Speaking of plugs, me and my phone got arrested last week for plugging it into a power bank. I got off clean, but my phone got charged with battery. So the nice thing about this set is it allows you to conceal joinery where you use countersunk screws. And since it's a 4-piece set, it allows you to create plugs in 4 different sizes, including 1/4 inch, 3/8, 1/2 inch, and 5/8 inch plugs. And this set will not only reliably work with softwood, but also hardwood. Simply chuck your plug cutter into your drill press and drill out those plugs. Then with either a screwdriver, chisel, or bandsaw, you can free those plugs from the wood. And with your fresh new plugs created, you can tap them into your countersunk holes. And with just a little bit of flush cutting and some sanding, you've instantly created a decorative accent to any workpiece. And since these bits are made from hardened and tempered steel, these bits are going to last for a while. And since these bits are just $4.44, I think they're definitely worth checking out. The next thing that I got at Menards is a miniature version of something that I frankly have not had a whole lot of success with. But at just $6.22, I thought I'd give this smaller version a try. This is the FastCap BabeBot. Let's give it a look. Speaking of bots, why did the robot need Viagra? Well, its disc was floppy. I've had some experience with glue bots in my shop, as I've got 3 right now that I never use. Some of my frustrations with these is they tend to not have a great seal and they take too much glue, and a lot of times that glue will harden up in the container. And part of the problem might be that these big dogs hold 16 ounces, which is a heck of a lot of glue. So if you don't use all your glue in one glue up, that glue could go old and become unusable. And that's exactly why I thought I'd check out this BabeBot. With its smaller stature, it only holds 4 ounces of glue. And this BabeBot has many of the unique features that you find with the glue bot, just in a smaller package, including 2 different silicone tips, as well as a spout cover and a rubber gasket to seal up your glue. And most importantly, it's got the same feature to push the glue upward when you have the bottle in a vertical position. But most importantly, I'm hoping that this smaller package of glue will hold up better than those crusty old ones that I'm still holding on to. And at just over $6, I think it's worth giving it a shot. But that BabeBot is not the only FastCap item I got from Menards. Let's check out our next FastCap item. And believe it or not, our next item is still under $10, at today's pricing coming in at $8.89. This is the FastCap Fast Break Edge Sander. You know, you talking about edges reminds me of a mean looking fly I saw the other day. It was sitting on the edge of the urinal. I think I pissed it off. So nobody likes to sand for hours on end, especially once you've finished a project. And one of the most tedious processes is breaking down those sharp edges with a hand sander. And that's exactly what this FastCap Fast Break Edge Sander helps to alleviate. This sanding block has a comfortable round grip, and with its 1-inch face, you can break down edges from 1/4 of an inch all the way up to 1 inch wide. And since it has a concave profile, it can easily cradle any piece of wood and soften both sides at once. Now you may have noticed the 2 brass knobs on the end of the block. If we unscrew these, you can see another feature of this unique design. Once those 2 brass knobs are loosened up, we can see inside the block, and this is how you replace the sandpaper. And you'll see there's 2 little hooks on the edge of the block that secure your sandpaper in place. And on the opposite side of that face, you'll see another unique feature, as it incorporates some sandpaper storage. And this block comes preloaded with 2 180 grit pieces of paper, as well as 1 80 grit piece of paper. And I think you'll find once you have this thing locked and loaded, it's going to make your sanding life just a little bit easier. And at under $10, I think this is a great accessory to have in your shop. The next item I picked up from Menards is still under $20, and it's something we all need in our shop, and that's a saw. But this saw at $19.38 has a unique feature. Let's check it out. This is the Fiskars Pro Power Tooth Pull Saw. Let's check it out. I got a tooth one for you. How do you know the toothbrush was invented in Kentucky? Well, if it was invented anywhere else, it'd be called a toothbrush. So there's a couple of reasons why I got this saw. First off, I really like the size and feel of this saw, with a soft rubber grip as well as a 6-inch blade. And with its flexible and bendable 19 teeth per inch blade, it can really do some detailed cuts. And it's that bendability of the blade that really make it ideal for doing things like flush cuts. But we haven't even gotten to the thing that intrigued me the most about this saw, and that has everything to do with the orange knob in back. It's this knob that allows you to completely fold down the saw with the blade completely protected. And with everything folded together, you're only looking at an 8-inch footprint, which is perfect for throwing in your toolbox or even putting in your apron. And a handy little saw like this for under $20 is a great addition to any shop. Well, the next item I purchased is the first item I got that was over $20, coming in at $22.24. And it's one of 2 items that I got from this brand, and it's a brand that you probably already have in your shop, and that brand is Bessey. Now yes, the blue and orange stores have lots of Bessey clamps in their inventory. However, I've never seen this design available in store. This is the Bessey 12-inch gear clamp. Let's take a closer look. You know, speaking of gears, that reminds me of a wooden car I made about 3 years ago. It had a wooden steering wheel, wooden tires, and wooden gears. Problem was, it wouldn't go. So at first glance, this looks a lot like any other Bessey F-style clamp. But there are quite a few key differences. Let's take a quick look. First off, you'll notice that one of the jaws of the clamp is a little bit larger than the F-style, coming in at 2.5 inches long versus the F-style at 1.5. The next thing that you'll notice is the placement of the clamping handle. This gives you a lot more clearance when dealing with your glue-ups versus the standard F-style. And the placement of this handle has everything to do with its gear train design. Instead of the jaw being directly attached to the clamping handle like you see in most F-style clamps, this gear clamp incorporates a gear train to separate the two. And you don't lose any clamping pressure with this system, as it still provides 450 pounds of clamping pressure. This clamp is also extremely easy to adjust with the red tab on the spine of the clamp. Instead of dealing with those spring-loaded metal tabs on your F-style clamp, you can simply press the red button and adjust your clamp to any width, making your adjustments a heck of a lot easier and really making them a one-hand operation. And at just $22.24, I think this is another great addition to any shop. Well, that takes us through 7 items so far and only 4 more left to take a look at. Before we move on to our next, I ask you to do me a huge favor, hit that subscribe button, leave a like, leave a comment, and share this video, as it really does help out this small woodworking channel. Also, if you haven't already, check out my website, FlynnDoggWoodwork.com. There you can find all sorts of fun woodworking accessories like all the t-shirts that I wear in my videos. This is actually one of my favorites. If you're interested in any of the tools we take a look at today, check out the links in the description below so that you can go check them out for yourself. And lastly, if you'd like to support the channel further, check out my channel memberships. There you can get access to 1 member video a week, as well as early access to all my videos. Now that we got those bills paid, let's move on to our 8th item. So one thing I noticed about Menards is they have a lot more selection when it comes to woodworking tools, especially when we talk about our next brand, which is Kreg. And because of this large selection of Kreg tools, I picked up a couple of items, and this is the first item I got. And as to be expected, it's going to be a pocket hole accessory. A pocket hole accessory for $24. This is the Kreg 90-degree pocket hole driver. Let's give it a look. Did you hear about the nurse that had a rectal thermometer in her pocket? Yeah, she said some asshole's got her pen. So I don't know if you've encountered this before, but a lot of times when you're driving in pocket hole screws, you can be in some tight spots. Maybe your impact driver is just a little bit too big to fit in position, or you just can't get it straight and narrow with those screws. Well, that's what this Kreg 90-degree pocket hole driver is all about. This impact-rated driver comes with a 3-inch square drive magnetic tip bit that locks into place and won't fall out. And the driver's got a little fin on the back of it that allows you to place your hand on it to give support as you're driving in your screw. And you can see as you rotate the side of the bit that attaches to your driver, the bit rotates in the same direction. And you can see that once you attach your driver, it gives you 4 inches of clearance away from your workpiece, allowing you to easily and comfortably access those pocket hole screws without any interference. And any tool that makes driving in pocket hole screws just a little bit easier is a winner in my book, especially when that tool costs just $24. The next item I picked up is by a brand that I've come to love in woodworking, and that's Milescraft. And I was completely blown away by the amount of Milescraft inventory that Menards has, but there's one thing that caught my eye. Something that I've never seen before from Milescraft, and it costs just $25.80. This little unique device is the Milescraft Drill Orbiter. Let's give it a quick look. You know, that orbiter reminds me of SpaceX. I heard they're going to shoot a bunch of cows into space. It's going to be the herd shot round the world. So this interesting little tool has some of the functionality of the tool we just took a look at, but it's got a lot more features. The first thing that you'll notice is the chuck. This has got a 3/8" keyless chuck for quick bit changes. You'll also notice it's got a 3/8" input shaft, which fits almost all power drills. The third leg of the tool is a soft rubber handle for comfort and support. If we take a closer look at the handle, you'll notice that there's an unlocking and locking feature. By pulling back on the red button and unlocking the tool, you'll see that it allows the tool to rotate freely. Not only can the drive shaft and the chuck move together, but they can also move completely independently, giving you a full 180 degrees rotation for both pieces. And this allows you to conquer some complex compound angles with your drill. And once you have your angle figured out, you twist the handle to lock it into place, attach your drill, and drill in your hole, using your handle to give you ultimate support. So if you find yourself in some weird drilling situations outside of that 90 degrees, this Milescraft Orbital may be the perfect solution. So the next item I picked up at Menards was a little bit more expensive, coming in at $39.70. And this next item is another clamp, and for this item we're going back to Bessey. Now this clamp wasn't exactly easy to find, and I probably would have missed it if I wouldn't have bent down and looked at the very bottom shelf. But when I did kneel down there, I was extremely pleased to find this Bessey clamp that I'd never seen before. This is the Bessey 48-inch I-beam bar clamp. Let's take a quick look. Speaking of beams, how do redneck aliens abduct people? Tractor beams, of course. So I have a lot of pipe clamps in my shop, and these things can start to get expensive once you get into the longer lengths. Not only do you have to buy the pipe clamp kit, but you also have to buy the pipe. And if you've looked at pipe prices recently, it's not that cheap. So when I saw this 48-inch I-beam clamp for less than $40, I thought I'd give it a try. First off, this clamp is powerful, just as powerful as any pipe clamp, having clamping pressure of 7,000 pounds. And as I said earlier, this is a 48-inch clamp, but I always like to measure these just to make sure. And you can see from my measurements, this is spot on right at 48 inches. If we look at the bar of the clamp, you'll see that it's got an I-beam design that's nickel plated. And this I-beam profile contributes to the ability to resist flex over large clamping spans. If we look at the face of the clamp, you can see it can accommodate glue-ups as wide as 2 inches thick. The movable jaw of this clamp is supported by 5 hardened clutch plates. By simply depressing these plates, you can easily adjust the clamp back and forth. On the opposite side of the clamp, you'll find an easy-to-grip crank handle that can move up to 3 inches. And with supported feet on both sides of this clamp, stability is not an issue at all. And because of all these features and the reasonable price at under $40, I think this is a great alternative to pipe clamps. Well, it's hard to believe it, but we're actually down to the last Menards item I picked up. And this was the most expensive item I picked up, at just under $50 at $49. And I took a little bit of inspiration from this guy, as I saw him using it a lot on New Yankee Workshop. So when I was at Menards and I saw the huge selection of Kreg tools and this item being one of them, I knew I had to pick it up. This is the Kreg Straight Edge Guide. Let's see what it comes with. You know I love guides, except for that one book I got that was a guide to surgical procedures. Yeah, it was missing an appendix. So as you can see from the pieces that come with this kit, you can see it requires just a little bit of minor assembly. So I won't bore you with this process as it was really quite easy. It only took me a few minutes and everything came together perfectly. So now that this guide is assembled, how does it work and what does it do? To understand that, we need to go over to the assembly table. This guide is intended to be used with the circular saw to rip down larger sheets of plywood. To do this, we first need to calibrate the guide to your specific circular saw. You'll first take your saw and place it right up against the edge on a square piece of plywood and make sure that your blade is touching that edge. With a blade right up against the edge on your square piece of plywood, you'll now take a pencil and strike a line right against the faceplate of your saw. Once you've done one side, you'll repeat the process on the opposite side. And with both of those markings made, we'll now align our guide with both of the lines we just struck. Now it's time to align our cut line indicator arms. To do this, we'll simply extend the arms out until they're completely flush with the edge of the plywood. With those arms in place, we can lock them down with the 2 locking stops. And just like that, everything is calibrated and ready for use. So let's test this thing out. Let's make some markings of where we want to cut, in this case right at 48 inches. So we'll make some markings both on the top and the bottom of the plywood. With those markings now made, we'll align the guide so that our cut line indicators are just to the left of where we made our markings. Then we can retract our cut line indicators, place our saw right up against the guide, and make our cut. And with our cut made, we can remove the guide and see that we have a perfect 48-inch cut. Now, one thing that I didn't show is how this guide securely attaches to the plywood. Let's take a look at that. It really has everything to do with this spring-loaded jaw on one side of the guide. First, place that spring-loaded jaw on the edge of your plywood. Then you'll move the second jaw so that its outside edge is right up against the edge of the plywood. Then you can pull back on the handle at the end of the guide and the plywood will be sandwiched in between the 2 jaws. And it's because of this guide's ease of use and ease of calibration that this might be an excellent alternative to something like a track saw. Well, believe it or not, that makes up 11 Menards items that you typically don't find in one of the blue or orange big box stores. We covered a lot of items pretty quickly today, and I'll have to say I'm quite pleased with the results of each item. Well, I really appreciate you joining me today, and if you haven't already, make sure you hit that subscribe button, leave a like, leave a comment, and share this video, as it truly does help. Also, if you haven't checked out my website, check out FlynnDoggWoodwork.com. There you can find all sorts of fun woodworking accessories like all the t-shirts that I wear in my videos. Lastly, if you'd like to support the channel, check out my channel memberships. There you get one dedicated member video a week, as well as early access to all my videos. Until next time, take care as always. You know, I sold most of my body parts to feed my gambling addiction. Maybe I should quit while I'm ahead. No? All right. How about this one? You know, my wife left me after I had the front parts of my feet sawn off. Turns out she was lactose intolerant. That was good. You'll like this one. Why do robots live in Africa? 'Cause Botswana, baby. That was good. What do you call a knot that measures the edges of a round table? Circumference, of course. No. All right, last one. What's the difference between a pickpocket and a peeping Tom? Well, a pickpocket snatches watches.